Please subscribe and share for more story. The silence that greeted Evelyn Hart Rowan that Tuesday morning felt nothing like peace. It pressed against her ears like a living thing, heavy and unnatural, spreading through the grand halls of her colonial revival home in Greenwich. For 2 years, her mornings had been filled with the predictable chaos of Caleb and Jenna, the grinding of espresso beans, the clatter of ceramic mugs, and Jenna's high-pitched voice complaining about everything from humidity to almond milk. But today, at 6:45 a.m., the house sat still, too still. Evelyn lay awake beneath the heavy comforter, staring at the faint water stain on the ceiling her late husband, Martin, once promised to repaint. A prickling unease crept up her spine. "Something's wrong," she whispered to no one. She rose, tying her silk robe, Martin's gift from Kyoto, tight around her waist as if bracing herself for impact. The hallway worsened her dread. The vintage Persian runner, a family heirloom for generations, was gone. Completely gone. "No," she breathed, her voice trembling. She moved faster, descending the staircase, gripping the banister as though the house might tilt beneath her feet. When she reached the living room and saw the vast, echoing emptiness, her knees nearly buckled. Everything was missing. Evelyn stumbled into the living room, her breath catching in her throat. The room looked gutted, stripped of its history, its warmth, its soul. The 1920 Steinway grand piano, the one she had taught young Caleb to play when his feet barely touched the floor, was gone. The velvet Chesterfield sofas, where she and Martin hosted Christmas parties for 20 years, removed without a trace. Even the floor-to-ceiling bookshelves were bare, pale silhouettes of dust marking where entire lifetimes of literature had once stood. She touched one empty shelf, her fingers trembling. No, this can't be happening. Her voice cracked under the weight of disbelief. She hurried into the dining room, hoping, praying, to find even one familiar thing left untouched. But the mahogany table, the needlepoint chairs she had stitched herself, the crystal chandelier that survived 4 generations, all gone. "God," she whispered, pressing a hand to her chest as panic clawed upward. She felt the room spinning. Someone had not robbed her house. They had emptied it. She sprinted up the stairs, heart pounding in her ears, and burst into the guest suite where Caleb and Jenna had lived for the past 2 years. The room was spotless. Too spotless. Not lived in, evacuated. The immaculate state of the guest room froze her in place. The bed was made with military precision. The closet was empty. Every trace of Caleb's camera equipment and Jenna's mountains of cosmetics had vanished. "They left," Evelyn murmured. "They left on purpose." She rushed to her own bedroom, dropped to her knees, and flung open the door of the walk-in closet. Behind her winter coats sat the fireproof safe, its door hanging crookedly ajar. She didn't need to look inside, but she forced herself to anyway. The emergency cash, $8,000, gone. Her grandmother's diamond brooch, gone. Jewelry boxes, picked clean. Only her passport remained. "No, Caleb," she whispered, voice cracking. She lunged for her phone on the nightstand, fingers shaking so violently she could barely type. She called him. Voicemail. She called again. And again. "Pick up, Caleb," she pleaded, pacing the hallway, each echo of her footsteps mocking her. On the 7th attempt, the line finally clicked. Static, wind, and distant electronic music filled her ear before she heard her son's voice. Casual, unbothered. "Hey, Mom. What's up?" Evelyn stopped moving. Her breath caught. "Caleb," she choked. "Where are you?" "The house. It's empty. Did we get robbed?" "Caleb, answer me." There was a pause, too long, too sharp, and then she heard a familiar giggle behind him, snide and cutting. "Jenna." Caleb sighed. "Mom, don't freak out. We didn't get robbed." His tone darkened. "We sold some stuff." Evelyn felt the floor tilt. "You sold my things," she whispered. "Caleb, that was your father's piano. Our dining room set. Our books, our memories." Caleb groaned. "Mom, please. Don't be dramatic. They were just old antiques collecting dust. Jenna got us a great deal with an estate liquidator. We had to move fast. Move fast, Evelyn repeated, staring at the empty wall where her favorite painting once hung. Where are you? Bora Bora, he said proudly. Jenna needed a mental reset. She's been stressed with her brand stuff, and she deserves a break. We both do. Evelyn closed her eyes as anger and grief merged in her veins. You used my home, my belongings, to pay for a luxury vacation. We're borrowing, Caleb snapped. Jenna yelled something in the background, something about toxic energy. Caleb raised his voice. We'll pay you back once Jenna's channel takes off. God, why do you make everything so heavy? Just relax. We'll be back in 2 weeks. And then he hung up. The house was silent again, but not the natural silence of dawn. This was a graveyard silence. Evelyn stood in the stripped living room, her phone hanging in her limp hand. Sunlight streamed through the windows, illuminating the floating dust where her life used to be. She felt something inside her, something old, something buried, fracture. Not cleanly. Not neatly. It shattered like glass. For 2 years, she had let Caleb and Jenna occupy her home, drain her finances, erode her spirit. She had explained it away as love, as motherly duty, as loneliness. But now, in the echo of that empty house, another feeling rose inside her. Cold. Steady. Fierce. Enough, she whispered. Evelyn Hart Rowan had spent 40 years designing skyscrapers in Manhattan and bridges in Boston, structures built to withstand earthquakes, hurricanes, disasters. Her spine was steel, even if she had forgotten it. She looked at the bare floors, the stripped walls, the ghost of her life taken from her, and she smiled. A dangerous, quiet smile. You wanted to play games with ownership, Caleb, she murmured. You're about to learn who holds the blueprints. And in that moment, her plan began. But to understand the fury building inside her, one had to understand how she had reached this breaking point. It had begun 2 years earlier, on a rainy Tuesday, when Caleb and Jenna had shown up on her doorstep soaked and desperate. Caleb, handsome, drifting, aimless, had always been a dreamer. Martin used to sigh and call him a man chasing butterflies. He had tried law school, culinary school, real estate, trading, streaming, each attempt abandoned halfway. Then he met Jenna Vale, a woman sculpted by filters, obsessed with affirmations she never lived by, fluent in therapy jargon used to excuse selfishness. Just for a few weeks, Mom, Caleb had pleaded that day, rain dripping from his hair. We just need to get back on our feet. Evelyn, aching from 5 years of widowhood and longing for companionship, opened her door. It was her first mistake. Weeks turned to months, and boundaries evaporated. Jenna changed the thermostat without asking. Caleb left dishes to mold. Jenna held mindset circles in Evelyn's living room and told her to stay upstairs because her energy was too heavy. Evelyn paid their groceries, their internet upgrades, their organic juice subscriptions. She became a ghost in her own home. And still, she justified it. He's my son, she'd tell herself. He's struggling. But 6 months before the house was emptied, she discovered the first true crack in the illusion. While cleaning the guest bathroom, because Jenna declared cleaning emotionally draining, Evelyn found a leather-bound journal tucked behind folded towels. On the cover, Vision Board 2023. She knew she shouldn't open it, but something inside her insisted. The entries were chilling. The old woman is still so healthy. Annoying. We need the house. Plan B. Convince her she's getting forgetful. Gaslight if necessary. Evelyn sank onto the toilet lid, shaking as she read. Jenna had written everything as though planning a hostile takeover. Caleb's name appeared again and again. He'll ask her for the server upgrade money. She won't suspect. We'll get her to sign the deed eventually. Then we move to LA. Her vision blurred as tears filled her eyes. For days afterward, she told herself Caleb didn't know. Caleb couldn't possibly be part of it. But she began noticing things. Caleb watching her too closely, Jenna whispering whenever she entered the room, their pitying looks when she misplaced her keys. They had treated her like prey long before the final betrayal. Back in the present, Evelyn took a shaky breath and wiped away the memory. It was time to act. Not with rage. Rage burned too fast, but with precision. She grabbed her phone, checked the calendar. Caleb and Jenna would return in 14 days. 14 days is plenty, she murmured. And so began her quiet, controlled storm. She drove first to the bank that watched her grow from a 24-year-old intern to a leading architect. When Robert Hale, the branch manager, saw her pale face, he stood immediately. "Evelyn? Are you all right?" She sat across from him, hands clasped. "Robert, I need to close my joint account with Caleb. Today." His expression darkened. "Is something wrong? Did he—" "I'm taking control of my assets," she interrupted, her voice firm. Within the hour, every cent of her savings, retirement distributions, and Martin's insurance payout had been moved to a new private account. The joint account balance now read $0. Next, she walked into the glass tower office of attorney Dana Whitmore, a woman known for winning cases, before stepping into the courtroom. Dana listened silently as Evelyn described everything, from the empty house to the journal to the Bora Bora vacation. When Evelyn finished, Dana folded her hands. "This is grand larceny, Evelyn. We can have them arrested the moment they land." "No," Evelyn said, staring out the window at the Stamford skyline. "Arresting them would make them martyrs. They'd spin a story, make me the villain. I want something cleaner." Dana raised an eyebrow. "Cleaner?" Evelyn turned, eyes cold steel. "I want them out of my property forever. Legally. Permanently. I want a restraining order. I want a new will, Caleb disinherited. Everything goes to the Architectural Scholarship Fund Martin, and I started. And I want papers ready to serve the moment they return." Dana smiled slowly. "I can do that." Day 3. A locksmith named Barry walked around her house, frowning at the emptiness. "Break in," he asked gently. "Family," Evelyn replied. He didn't ask another question. He changed every lock, doors, windows, garage. Installed fingerprint access and high-security deadbolts. Day 4. Contractors installed a security system with cameras covering every inch of the property. Motion sensors. Alarms. Cloud backups. "If a mouse sneezes," the technician said, "you'll know." Evelyn nodded. "Good." On day 5, she walked into the garage and stared at the mountain of neglected belongings Caleb and Jenna left behind. Piles of Jenna's discarded fast fashion hauls, Caleb's broken tech gadgets, their failed business inventory. "Perfect," she whispered. She bought 50 heavy-duty moving boxes. For 3 days, Evelyn packed their lives with surgical precision. Each folded shirt, each dusty gadget, each abandoned dream placed neatly into labeled boxes. Jenna, shoes; Caleb, failed projects; influencer props, miscellaneous clutter. When she was done, the garage looked like a warehouse of consequences. Day 8, she went shopping, not for replacements of antiques that could never be replaced, but for the life she wanted now. A single mid-century armchair for the living room. A modern coffee table. A state-of-the-art espresso machine. Crisp white linens for her bed. Day 12, she visited the local women's shelter and donated all remaining pantry food. Then she hired a professional cleaning crew to scrub the house from top to bottom. They removed Jenna's sticky-tack vision boards, steam-cleaned vape residue from carpets, and washed walls until the paint gleamed. When they finished, the house smelled of lemon and sage. "It smells like freedom," Evelyn whispered. Day 14 arrived. Rain tapped against the windows, a perfect mirror of the night Caleb and Jenna first appeared at her door. Evelyn sat calmly in her single new armchair, facing the entrance, tea steaming beside her. Her phone buzzed. Motion detected. Front gate. Through the security feed, she watched an Uber XL pull up. Caleb and Jenna stepped out, sun-kissed from their tropical escape, dragging Louis Vuitton suitcases purchased with her silverware. They laughed as though the world belonged to them. "Unbelievable," Evelyn muttered. Caleb slid his old key into the lock. It didn't turn. He tried again, harder. "What the hell?" Jenna huffed. "Probably the deadbolt," she snapped. "Ring the bell." The chime echoed through the house. Evelyn didn't move. She took a slow sip of tea. The bell rang again, then frantic knocking followed.
Mom.
Open up. It's us. Evelyn rose, smoothed her skirt, and then frantic knocking followed.
Mom.
Open up. It's us. Evelyn rose, smoothed her skirt, and approached the door, but didn't open it. She pressed the intercom button. Go away, Caleb. A beat of stunned silence. Mom, stop playing around. It's freezing. Open the door. Evelyn's voice came calm and amplified through the speaker. You don't live here anymore. Jenna stepped forward, face twisted. Evelyn, open this damn door. I need the bathroom. We've been traveling for 20 hours. This isn't a public restroom, Evelyn replied. And it's no longer your home. Caleb pounded on the door. Mom, open it, or I'll break a window. Evelyn's voice turned sharp. You break anything, and police will arrive in 3 minutes. Police? For what? Caleb sputtered. This is my house. Your house. Evelyn laughed softly. Check the deed, Caleb. I own this home. The home you robbed. Jenna screeched. We didn't rob you. We borrowed from a family investment. We were going to pay you back. With what? Evelyn cut in. Your sponsorship deals that never come? Caleb's abandoned business plans? Affirmations don't pay debts. Jenna's face paled. You read my journal? I read everything, Evelyn replied. The notes about gaslighting me, the plans to steal the deed, the mockery, the entitlement. Caleb's face crumbled, guilt flickering for the first time, but quickly replaced by denial. You went through our stuff? Focus. Evelyn snapped. You sold your father's piano. You sold the dining table where you blew out birthday candles for 20 years. You sold my wedding silver to buy yourselves a tan. Caleb stepped closer to the camera, rain running down his cheeks. Where are we supposed to go? Evelyn paused. I don't know. Maybe manifest it. Jenna shrieked. Our stuff. All my clothes, all my equipment. Everything is inside. Your belongings are in the garage, Evelyn said. The code is 1-2-3-4. You have 1 hour to remove them. After that, they go to the dump. Mom, please, Caleb's voice cracked. He pressed his palm against the window, trying to see her. I'm your son. Evelyn's eyes softened. Only for a second. She stepped closer to the door, placing her hand against the opposite side of the glass. Yes, she whispered. You are my son, and that is exactly why I have to do this. What does that even mean? He cried. Her voice wavered but remained firm. If I let you back in, if I forgive this, you will never grow. You will never become a man. You will stay a parasite until the day I die. I love you too much to let that happen. Caleb stood frozen, soaked, stunned. Evelyn turned off the intercom and walked away. Behind her, the knocking escalated into screaming, Jenna calling her a witch, Caleb begging, demanding, threatening. But Evelyn kept walking. She watched the monitors as they finally hurried to the garage. She watched them struggle to carry 50 boxes in the pouring rain. Watched them argue, collapse, break. Watched Jenna throw a box of shoes at Caleb's chest. Watched Caleb shout back, their perfect facade dissolving. And as their Uber pulled away with half-soaked boxes, Evelyn whispered, goodbye. When silence returned, it was softer, almost kind. Evelyn sat at her kitchen counter, staring out at the rain, letting the weight of the day settle. She poured out the cold tea, her hands finally trembling. Then she went upstairs, locked her bedroom door, and allowed herself to cry for the first time in 2 weeks. She cried for the son she had lost long before that morning. She cried for the memories that had been sold to strangers. She cried for every moment she had silenced her own intuition for the sake of love. But beneath the grief lived something else, something unexpected. Relief. A lightness. Space. The next few days were storm online. Jenna posted a dramatic, tear-filled TikTok titled, "My evil mother-in-law made me homeless." In it, she sobbed about betrayal, toxic energy, and jealousy. She painted herself and Caleb as innocent victims. Evelyn would have ignored it, until her niece, Ari Parker, stitched the video with hard evidence. Photos of the gutted house. Screenshots of the police documentation. The internet turned viciously against Jenna overnight. She deleted her account by morning. Caleb tried to call. And call. And call. Evelyn blocked him. Every message he sent tore at her heart. Mom, I'm starving. Mom, I'm sleeping on a friend's couch. Mom, why are you doing this to me? Mom, I love you. Please answer. But Evelyn held firm. She stared at the empty space where the Steinway once stood and reminded herself, love is not enabling. Love is letting someone face the storm they created. 6 months passed. She received a letter, not from Caleb, but from Lydia Vale, Jenna's older sister. The handwriting was nervous, slanted. Dear Mrs. Rowan, I want to apologize for my sister. She is unwell. She and Caleb broke up 2 weeks after Bora Bora. Things got bad. Police were involved. Caleb is living in a studio in Queens now. He's working in a warehouse. I saw him last week. He looked exhausted. He asked me to tell you something.
He's sorry.
Truly. He said he knows he can't buy back your piano, but he's saving for a keyboard. Evelyn sat at her dining table, now her drafting table, and read the letter twice. Her throat tightened. But she didn't call Caleb. Not yet. Some fractures needed time, pressure, and darkness before they became something stronger. A year passed since the day her house was emptied. The silence was no longer a predator. It was a companion. The dining room had become her bright, sunlit drafting studio. Rolls of blueprints lined the walls. Pencils, rulers, and models scattered her polished work table. Evelyn returned to architecture not for money but for joy, consulting young women, mentoring new designers, guiding ambitious minds. Her home began to reflect her again. She bought a modern white Yamaha grand piano, not a replacement for Martin Steinway, but a new beginning. She took lessons once a week. Her fingers were rusted from grief and time, but the music returned, note by note. She joined a hiking club. She traveled. She learned to cook for one with delight instead of sadness. Her life was no longer defined by filling the void of loneliness. It expanded from a place of strength. She was healing. She was rebuilding. One morning, as golden sunlight poured into her kitchen, a delivery truck pulled up her driveway. A flat package arrived, addressed simply, to Evelyn. Confused, she opened it. Inside was a framed photograph, cracked, weathered, but unmistakable. It was a picture of her, Martin, and young Caleb at the beach. Caleb laughing, missing one front tooth, sand stuck to his cheeks. A photo she thought had been lost forever in the liquidation. Her breath hitched.
A
note was taped to the back.
Mom,
I found this in one of the boxes from the garage. I didn't want it to get ruined.
I'm sorry. Truly.
I'm working 2 jobs. I'm in culinary school again, this time for real. I don't know if I'll ever deserve your forgiveness, but I'm trying to become someone Dad would be proud of. I miss you. Caleb. Evelyn pressed the photo to her chest, tears slipping down her cheeks. But this time, they were warm, not from grief, but from something fragile and hopeful blooming inside her. She didn't pick up the phone. She didn't dial his number. But she placed the picture on her mantle.
Prominently. Carefully.
Like something cherished. Healing wasn't a sprint. It wasn't a single moment. It was slow, patient acceptance. It was space. It was boundaries. It was allowing love to breathe again, without sacrificing herself. Evelyn began to share bits of her story online. Not names, not specific details, but emotions. Lessons. Wounds that reshaped her. Have you ever trusted someone, she wrote in one post, only to watch them sell that trust for a quick thrill? The comment section flooded with stories. Women abandoned by children they raised, mothers drained by entitlement, widows manipulated by loneliness. Evelyn read each comment with a heavy but open heart. She wasn't alone. Thousands of women understood. Healing, she wrote back one night, isn't about revenge. It's about reclaiming the space inside yourself. Meanwhile, Caleb continued to send small, respectful updates through Lydia. He passed a class with an A. He started saving again. He stopped hanging with old friends. Evelyn didn't respond, but she read every message. And for the first time in years, she allowed herself to imagine a world where her son wasn't a burden, but a man she could meet, heart to heart, without fear of being used. She was not ready yet, but she was closer. One afternoon, Evelyn sat on her patio, espresso steaming beside her. The yard was quiet, lush, alive. She closed her eyes, breathing in the sweet scent of blooming jasmine. Then her phone buzzed. A message from Lydia. Caleb got accepted into a culinary internship. He asked me to tell you he hopes you're eating well.
He wants to cook for you someday.
Evelyn closed her eyes. A soft laugh escaped her. Cooking for me, she whispered. Of all things. Martin had always said Caleb would make magic in a kitchen if he ever learned to discipline his hands. Maybe he was finally learning. She carried her espresso inside, where her new piano waited. She sat, placed her fingers on the smooth keys, and played slowly, hesitantly at first, then let the notes rise. Music filled the house, not as a memory of what had been lost, but as a promise of what could be rebuilt. That evening, she turned off every light, stood in the center of her living room, and felt the stillness wrap around her like a warm shawl. Her home was not empty. It was hers. Months later, Evelyn received another unexpected package. This one wasn't flat. It was a small box. Inside lay a simple wooden spoon, hand-carved, polished, beautiful. A card rested beside it. Mom, I made this in class. Our instructor says cooking is architecture for the senses. Building flavor, like building bridges. Thought you'd appreciate that. I'm not asking for anything. I'm not trying to buy forgiveness. I just wanted you to have the first thing I ever crafted with intention. I hope you're well. Caleb. Evelyn held the spoon delicately, like it might break. She traced the engraved initials. CR. Tears blurred her vision. She didn't write back. But she placed the spoon in a glass jar on the counter, right beside her favorite set of cooking tools. Later that night, she walked through her quiet home, trailing her hand along the new furniture, the rebuilt life. She paused at the mantel, touching the framed photo. You're trying, she whispered. And I see it. She didn't need Caleb to hear the words yet. She only needed to acknowledge them inside herself. Progress wasn't loud. Sometimes it was the whisper of hope carried in a wooden spoon. The next week, Evelyn found herself thinking of Caleb often, too often. She wondered whether he slept enough, whether he had proper winter boots, whether he still played music on anything at all. She scolded herself for caring too much, then reminded herself that loving her child was not the crime. Losing herself to them was. And she had vowed never to lose herself again. That evening, her hiking group climbed a scenic trail overlooking the sound. At the summit, as the wind whipped through her hair, she felt something loosen inside her, something that had been clenched tight since Martin's death, since Caleb's betrayals, since the gutted house. I survived, she whispered to the horizon. And I rebuilt. When she returned home, the house welcomed her, not with echoes, but with warmth. She made herself dinner, pan-seared fish, lemon butter, rosemary potatoes, something she rarely cooked before. And as she plated the meal, she glanced at the wooden spoon and smiled. Healing, she realized, was not always dramatic. Sometimes it was a quiet dinner made by a woman who learned she was enough. Winter arrived, coating Greenwich in soft layers of snow. Evelyn decorated her home for the holidays, not with the antique ornaments she once had, but with modern pieces she chose intentionally. Her tree sparkled with white lights and handmade glass bulbs. She baked cookies alone, humming softly as warm cinnamon filled the kitchen. One night, as she placed a batch on a cooling rack, her doorbell chimed. Not the frantic pounding of a year ago, just a gentle ring. She checked the camera. A delivery driver stood holding a thermos and an envelope. She opened the door. Mrs. Rowan, he asked. Got a food delivery for you. I didn't order anything, she said, puzzled. He smiled. Guy said it's prepaid. Wants you to stay warm. He handed her the thermos and envelope. Inside the envelope was a short note. Made this in class. It's butternut squash soup, your favorite. No pressure. Just nourishment. See, Evelyn's eyes softened. She carried the thermos to the table, poured the steaming golden soup into a bowl, and inhaled deeply. "He remembered," she whispered, her voice trembling. She took a slow, careful sip. Warmth spread through her chest, comforting, familiar, a love reshaped rather than broken. The next morning, Evelyn stood at her drafting table, sketching a new bridge proposal for the firm she consulted with. The winter sun spilled across the blueprints, illuminating her pencil strokes. She worked with a steadiness she hadn't felt in years. When her phone buzzed, she ignored it at first, until she saw the name. Lydia Vale. She hesitated, then answered. "Lydia?" "Hey," Lydia said gently. "I'm just calling because, well, Caleb asked me not to, but I think he deserves a little credit. He turned down a night out with friends yesterday to finish a catering job. He's really trying, Evelyn." "Really?" Evelyn exhaled slowly. "I know he is." He didn't want me to tell you this part," Lydia added, lowering her voice, "but he's saving half his paycheck every month. For something important." Evelyn's heart tugged. "A place?" "No," Lydia said. "For a gift. He wants to replace something he took." Evelyn pressed her palm to her forehead as emotion rushed through her. Lydia continued. "He said he doesn't expect anything from you. He just wants to stand in front of you someday as a man." Evelyn closed her eyes. "Thank you, Lydia." And she meant it. That night, Evelyn sat at her piano, playing softly under the warm glow of a table lamp. She paused between chords, listening to the gentle hum of her home. For the first time, she allowed herself to imagine a future where she and Caleb might sit at this piano together, not in guilt or conflict, but in quiet understanding. She touched the keys lightly. "Martin," she whispered, gazing at her late husband's photo on the wall, "I hope I'm doing this right." In her heart, she heard his answer. "You are stronger than you know." She exhaled, letting the thought settle. She wasn't ready to open the door to Caleb yet, but she was ready to unlock something within herself. Forgiveness wasn't surrender. Forgiveness was growth. And Evelyn Hart Rowan had spent her entire life building things meant to last. She stood, closed the piano lid gently, and walked toward the large windows overlooking her snowy yard. The world outside was quiet, fragile, beautiful, much like the tentative bond forming between mother and son. As Evelyn stood there, bathed in the soft glow of winter moonlight, she felt a peace she had never known. Her home was no longer a battlefield, no longer a shrine to grief, no longer a hollow echo of betrayal. It was a sanctuary, rebuilt by her own hands, her own choices, her own courage. She glanced at the wooden spoon in the kitchen, the photo on the mantel, the piano waiting for morning light. Symbols of loss, yes, but also of possibility. In the quiet, she whispered to herself, "I am enough. I have always been enough." Outside, a fresh snowfall began, blanketing the world in white. And inside, Evelyn felt something else falling over her life. Renewal. She lifted her chin, her posture steady, strong. She had closed the door on dependency, on manipulation, on guilt, but she had left a window open for hope. Not naive hope. Mature hope, earned hope. Love would return someday, perhaps. Maybe even Caleb. But only when both of them were ready. The silence in her home was no longer emptiness. It was music. It was healing. It was the sound of a woman finally living on her own terms. Thanks for watching. If you value stories of respect, dignity, and justice, please subscribe. It means more than you know, and it lets me keep sharing the lessons